Deputy City Controller Brown and Finance Director Dow. Welcome. Deputy City Controller Brown, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This is a monthly financial report for the period ending March 31st, 2014. In the general fund, the Comptroller's office is projecting an ending fund balance of $176.6 million. This is $15.6 million lower than the projection of the Finance Department. Based on our current projections, the fund balance will be $37.9 million above the city's target of holding 7.5% total expenditures, excluding debt service and reserves. We've increased our revenue projection $1.3 million over the last month's projection. The major differences from finance projections are in 6 categories. First, property taxes are $8.8 million lower. Second, industrial assessments are $1 million lower. Third, licenses and permits are $1.7 million lower. Fourth, charges for services are $3 million lower. Fifth, municipal courts, fines, and forfeits are $1.7 million lower. And sixth, miscellaneous other is $3.7 million lower. Expenditure projections increased $658,000, primarily reflecting a higher payment to the Houston Arts Alliance for higher hot tax receipts. Funds transferred from general government include library, an increase of $411,000 for the Houston Literacy Program and personnel costs, and the police increased $593,000 also for personnel costs. All these increases above were offset by a decrease in general government of $372,000. In the enterprise funds, in the aviation operating fund, we've increased our projection for operating revenues $312,000 for higher concession revenues. In the C&E facilities operating fund, our projection for non-operating revenues increased $3.6 million, again for higher than expected hot tax revenues. Operating expenses decreased $460,000 for lower bank services, and collectively these changes caused operating transfers to increase $4.1 million. Our projection for the combined utility system operating transfers increased $30 million for higher pay-as-you-go funding for capital projects. In the dedicated drainage and street renewal fund, our projection for expenditures increased $25 million for the additional pay-as-you-go funding for capital projects. There were no material changes in the stormwater fund. We did want to note in the health benefits fund, the projecting ending fund balance for fiscal year 2014 is now projected at $43 million. That's up from the original budget amount of $9 million. Commercial paper and bonds, all of those variable rate structures are below the 20%, except for the convention and entertainment facilities at 20.9%. I'll go ahead and move into the quarterly investment report. As of March 31st, 2014, the city had $3.6 billion invested in our general investment pool. This is a pool that is characterized as a short-term bond fund that holds very high credit quality. Fitch has recently reviewed the portfolio and assigned the highest rating of AAA on that investment portfolio. The investments are $380 million higher than last year, and this is primarily attributable to the Water Development Board loan and commercial paper issuance from CUS, also from the increase from the Airport Improvement Fund and Revenue Fund from aviation, and also from the drainage fee from the Special Revenue Fund. As of March 31st, the general pool was yielding approximately 76 basis points, which is down from 86 basis point yield in the prior quarter. Also like to move into the swap report. The swap report appears in the MOFAR as a comprehensive description of our 2 swap positions. The city had a net interest earning for the first 3 quarters of fiscal 2014 from its swaps, approximately $2.2 million in revenue, which is a positive. The city's swaps are fairly complex. If anyone has any specific questions, we'd be happy to meet with you. And this concludes my report.
Good morning. This is a 9+3 financial report for the period ending March 31st, 2014. Our fiscal year 2014 projections are based on 9 months of actual results and 3 months of projections. In the general fund, we're currently projecting ending fund balance of $192.2 million, which is approximately 1.1% less, $1.1 million less than last month, and 10.4% of expenditures less debt service payments. In revenues and other sources, our projection decreased by $435,000 from last month due to the following forecast changes. Property tax decreased by $2.8 million due to higher tax reimbursements. Telephone franchise fees decreased by $676,000, mainly due to lower landline usage. Other franchise fees decreased by $255,000, mainly due to prior year over cable TV franchise fees. Indirect interfund services decreased by $336,000, mainly due to lower rates and indirect cost recovery for grants. Other taxes increased by $1.5 million, mainly due to higher third quarter receipts from mixed beverage taxes. Licenses and permits increased by $640,000, mainly due to special fire permits and burglary alarm permits being higher than anticipated. Intergovernmental revenue increased by $526,000 in tax increment reinvestment zones due to higher tourist taxable values. In miscellaneous other revenues, they increased by $294,000 for recovery and refunds due to higher utility rate case reimbursements. And finally, in revenues and the transfers from other funds, we increased by $688,000 due to higher hotel occupancy tax. In general fund expenditures, our projection increased by $658,000 from last month, mainly due to a payment to Houston Arts as a result of higher hotel occupancy tax. Additionally, this report also reflects budget transfers from general government to several departments in the amount of $1.2 million for the following: $797,000 in various departments to cover pension costs in the amount of $645,000, and termination pay in the amount of $152,000. $232,000 to the library department for the Houston Literacy Program in the amount of $100,000, and hope adjustments in the amount of $132,000. $127,000 to the Department of Neighborhoods for interfund vehicle services. We're projecting no change in the enterprise special revenue funds. We include, with the exception of the following. We agree with the controller on all of the changes in the enterprise funds. In the health benefits fund, our revenues increased by $2.4 million, mainly due to prescription reimbursements from Cigna, and expenditures decreased by $11.4 million, primarily due to lower medical claims as anticipated. In the building inspection fund, expenditures decreased by $2.3 million, mainly due to delays in the integrated land management system replacement project. And operating transfers out increased by $5.9 million for prepayment of debt services. Contractor responsibility fund expenditures increased by $400,000 due to prior year payment for Houston Care Program in the Health Special Reserve Fund. In the Health Special Revenue Fund, revenues increased by $400,000 due to the prior year revenue from the Contractor Responsibility Fund. In the Essential Public Health Service Fund, expenditures increased by $336,000, mainly due to purchase of non-capital computer equipment and supplies. In the Historic Preservation Fund, expenditures decreased by $293,000, primarily due to delays in planned projects. Thank you very much, and that concludes our report.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilmember Kuba.
In the hearing the other day, I asked you the question, why are the revenues in the municipal court going down and the expenses in the municipal court going up to the point where are we projected to be next year? Have you made a projection?
No, sir, we're in the final stages of putting together the budget for 15.
Question is, why are the revenues going up and the expenses, the revenues going down and the expenses going up? Do you have a reason for that?
Like I said yesterday, as we talked about, I think it's a long-term trend. It's generally tied to lower ticket issuance by the police officers, so therefore there's less revenue reflected in these.
But why are the expenses going up? We need to make a record, because we're in an open city council meeting now. We was in a hearing the other day. I want to make a record of this, that the revenues are going down, but the expenses are going up. Why are the expenses increasing?
Is the case in a lot of the general funds. We have increased pension costs, you have increased health benefit costs over the long run, although not so much in the past couple of years, and then you have contractual increases for the unions, the municipal union in this case, that affect us particularly in the last 2 years.
Well, I want the citizens to know that if the C-SMART program and the expenditures on C-SMART were put under the municipal courts where they probably belong, since C-SMART's going to be primarily a City of Houston municipal court function, we'd be operating in quite a deficit. When the fire department had a deficit and their expenses going up, we had a big uproar here on the Pennington-Martin Amendment, and we did all kinds of things and got pretty upset. I want you to know, for those of you that are listening, the municipal courts are in a crash mode. We have real problems there, and I know the administration made a statement that the courts are about justice and about not about making money, and I agree with that. But the truth of the matter is, we have a delay for citizens who are going to the municipal court. This administration has delayed the police officers' attendance, and what's happening is people are having to get babysitters for their children and going to the municipal court and having to wait for an officer to show up, sometimes as late as 1:30. And I want citizens to know I oppose this. I don't believe this is right. There's things that need to be done. I believe that this is being mismanaged, and I want to make a public record of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Pennington.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. I agree with Councilmember Kubash. As I mentioned, some of our residents' only contact with city government is through the municipal courts. And when they have a bad experience over there, they're inconvenienced, as he outlined, and we need to do what we can do to make it efficient. And I'd also like to point out that I raised a question about the capital expenditures for over there with declining revenues. Now, it may be necessary to, hear the cases in an expedited way, but I think we ought to take the cost into consideration. My other question is, in discussion with your staff, Kelly, we were talking about how we operate based on a projection. And of course, we have two different projections, one from the Comptroller and one from your office. And since we're nearing and the Comptroller's projections are less than yours, generally speaking, about a reasonable amount, are we going to run into a situation before the end of the fiscal year where the Comptroller will not certify expenditures if he decides that we don't have enough money, and even though you decide that we do, or how is that issue handled?
Well, we've done preliminary analysis through the end of the fiscal year, and it looks like if our property tax and our sales tax track in the same manner that they have been, that we will be well within the amount that we will certify for the general appropriations ordinance. So that's not going to be an issue this year.
Great, thank you very much.
With regards to municipal court, I believe one of the issues we had considered when we were having that discussion about some of the changes in the scheduling was some of the high cost of the police overtime. I remember that was a factor. I remember early on we did receive some early reports from the municipal courts, but I think it's been a while since we've heard that an update. So perhaps it's timely to get another update on how the system's working out for both citizens and in terms of the cost on overtime.
Could I make one final comment about the municipal court? Since I made a suggestion a couple of years ago that we consider changing the municipal traffic offenses from criminal to civil, which would allow, I think, the much easier handling and more expeditious handling of those matters. And I know it would require a change in state law, but it's something that, if it's possible to achieve, it would probably be worthwhile to do that. Thank you.
Appreciate that suggestion. Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. My question is with regard to the health benefits fund. I kind of raised it yesterday with regard to the controller's projections at year end is now about 43 million compared to what we budgeted in the amount of 9 million. And Kelly, I think you told me that again, dollars need to be, because we are a self-insured plan now, we have to have dollars in the fund because each month is different. What is it? What is the baseline that we are looking to have in this health benefits fund as a reserve?
We're looking to have between 30 and 60 days. 30 is a minimum, 60 days worth of claims is a maximum. And that we would be with the 43 million right near the 60 days rolling into next year. We're still working on the final projections for expenditures next year, but this amount looks like it would have us right about where we want to be for that reserve.
So moving forward for the health benefits fund, it's probably our objective is about to have anywhere between $40 to $50 million set aside. Thank you.
Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning. Deputy Director Brown and Director Now, thank you for your presentation, gentlemen.